Welcome back. Okay, we're going to go there. Be honest. How often have you gone to the bathroom and sat on the toilet way longer than you needed to? You know, just scrolling your phone, avoiding your kids.
Maybe you were distracted, or maybe you just needed a little bit of a break. We have Dr. Kohli here, who is really going to explain, you know, there's a lot. We're not just talking about something that's kind of maybe funny and awkward to talk about, but there's some health benefits and some science behind this too.
A lot of science, ladies. So, you know, if you think about it, it might be reasonable to think the longer you sit, the better it is, right? Because you're giving your bowels time to empty and you're relaxed, but it's actually the opposite. So most experts say don't sit longer than 5 to 10 minutes. Because think about what's happening when you're sitting. Your thighs are supported, but your rectum, you know, is actually opened up and gravity is pulling it down. So your risk for hemorrhoids, which are these swollen veins around the rectum, can go up. And for women, especially postmenopausal women, you can get a lot of weakening of the pelvic floor because your pelvic floor is kind of holding all your organs up. So the longer you sit, the more you can put yourself at risk, basically.
And you're talking about personal bathrooms, like when I'm like, okay, kids, mommy needs some me time, and then I'm just scrolling on Instagram. But who's higher at risk? Is it men, women? Does it depend on the age group?
Yeah, so as you get older, your pelvic floor relaxes. That's where those Kegels come in that really help to kind of keep things tucked in. So women, especially postmenopausal women, anyone who's chronically constipated is at higher risk, because you can imagine you might be straining. And if you're scrolling on your phone or Instagram or what have you, which is a common behavior, many people use the toilet as the me time, right? Yes. That's a time when the world is shut out, you're just sitting there, and 5 minutes can turn into 10, into 20. That can actually increase risk, because the longer you sit, the less supported your organs are, and everything's going to kind of bulge out. So the idea here is that after 10 minutes, if you haven't gone and you need to set a timer, then you get up and you walk around, or you do something else. Okay. Because walking around actually stimulates your gut, makes you move, or you eat something, because there's a reflex called the gastrocolic reflex. So for many people, when they wake up in the morning, the coffee or the tea or breakfast is what helps them move their bowels in the morning. So that's what you would want to do naturally. Don't just sit there doom scrolling Instagram at all.
Is there a certain time that someone should consult with a doctor? Like, what are some of the other signs they should be looking for?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to keep that phone and tablet away. If you are going to bring it, set the timer. But if you're feeling like you're having to sit really long time to move your bowels, you're having trouble moving your bowels, they usually say about 3 weeks of chronic constipation. That's a time to talk to.
3 weeks, that seems very uncomfortable.
It's very long, but I don't mean completely not going. That's obstipation. I mean just not going normally. Now, the other thing to be really mindful of is, what is your normal? And this is really important, because for some people, normal's every day, for most people, but for some people it can be a few times a week. And then looking at the caliber of the stool. And so we took my nephew to the gastroenterologist, the GI doctor, and they have a little stool chart, and you should really be having sort of a sausage every day for most people. If you're starting to have pellets, you're probably getting behind and getting constipated, and that puts excess stress on your rectum as well when you're trying to move your bowels.
Are there any sort of things that we should be eating to help with this?
Yeah, so natural things definitely help. In fact, our body's designed to have the system in place. So taking laxatives is a terrible idea. If you need to take it once in a while because you took medicines or traveled and fell off your schedule, that's fine. But on a regular basis, the fiber, making sure you stay hydrated, because that water is what keeps that stool nice and soft, makes it easier to move. And then supplements that can help, like magnesium, for example, can help keep your stool nice and soft. So for a lot of my patients that fall behind, I recommend a lot of these natural remedies rather than any of those stimulant laxatives or any other types of laxatives. And again, if it's been a few days, it's important to talk to your doctor.
And you and I talked about magnesium earlier. I mean, this is a little bit of a sidebar, but magnesium, you said, also can help with anxiety, with sleep.
I take it myself. I tell a lot of my patients, in fact, it even helps with arrhythmias. There's a certain type of cardiac arrhythmia that it can help sort of settle out. So for most people, it's safe to take magnesium if you don't have kidney problems and you're healthy. And I usually recommend it at bedtime, because it's a nice way to sort of wind down. When you're moving your bowels, ladies, I also recommend try to do it around the same time every day, because there's something behavioral about it as well with your brain. So sometimes people just get up and start running out the door first thing in the morning and then try to go at work in between meetings or what have you. That's not the right way to do it. You really want to program your body, because it's just as much behavioral as it is sort of physiologic and scientific. And if that iPhone helps you relax, Sam, then you can have it.
Noted.
But you have to set a timer for 5 minutes.
Got it. Thank you, Dr. Kohli. Always great advice.
Thank you so much. dentist can be filled with fear and anxiety for your kid or grandchild, especially if they need a shot or a vaccine. According to the healthychildren.org, at least 2/3 of kids have a fear of needles. I don't blame them.
I know, and I've experienced this with my 2 kids. I have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, as Dr. Kohli knows. And because of the fear and just the anxiety in general, when you go and visit a doctor, many parents unfortunately put off checkups because they dread how their child might act. And it doesn't have to be this way. So today we have our medical expert, Dr. Payal Kohli, here to weigh in on some tips from the Child Mind Institute. So Dr. Kohli, we're going to go through the tips, and then after each tip, I want you to chime in and tell us what from your perspective as a doctor, and any little anecdotes you can add. So let's begin. All right. First, they say be clear about the details, about what the doctor appointment will entail. Avoid using vague explanations. Instead, explain each step in clear, detailed way that your child can easily understand. For example, after we go into the exam room, the doctor will listen to your heartbeat with a tool called a stethoscope. Dr. Kohli?
So I love this. Preparing your child for the visit is one of the most important things you can do, but I would say even simplify the language more, because the child doesn't know what a stethoscope is, and you want to make sure to focus on positive words. So don't use the word hurt, don't use the word pain. Say the doctor might give you medicine that's going to make you strong and healthy. You might even want to role play with the child at home using stuffed animals to kind of, act out the visit so that there's no surprises when they go there.
I love that. There's a good episode, by the way, on Daniel Tiger. They do a whole thing on Daniel Tiger, so that's a good one too.
Oh, good. All right, we got another tip. So don't lie when it comes to shots. According to the Children's National Health System, being straightforward would help build trust and ensure that your child won't feel betrayed or blindsided if things don't go as planned, which only increases anxiety for the next time. What do you think?
Yes, also very much in agreement with this. And what I like to tell my patients is give the child some control. So have them choose which arm the shot is going to go into, right? Have them choose the Band-Aid that goes in afterwards and tie it into some kind of reward. So yes, it's going to be uncomfortable. There might be pain, but afterwards, we go for ice cream or get a toy or whatever.
I love it. And that is a tip coming up. Look at Dr. Kohli. She knows exactly what to do.
We didn't show her before.
No, we did not. 2 more tips. Validate their feelings so they do not feel alone. And finally, to Dr. Kohli's point, bring distractions like toys or set up a fun reward afterwards. Grab an ice cream like Dr. Kohli said, or head to the park, do something that they love to do, and any other things that you would add to this.
So I would say a tablet is always a really nice distraction. Sometimes bringing something that they're comfortable with at home, like a blanket or a stuffed animal or something else, that's a really helpful way. And then telling a story using superheroes. So as part of validating their feelings, talking about how when the superhero hits the bad guy and then they get hurt, but then they get better and they recover. So just really explaining to them what happens afterwards and then talking about it the next day and kind of checking in on them and making sure that they don't have lingering feelings or anxiety or anything else that's left over.
And something that was told to me too, because when I had my first child, I was much more anxious. My second child was like, okay, we're going to the doctor. But that first child, I was told that your anxiety, even if you think you're keeping a straight face, is rubbing off on them.
And they can read it too.
Yes. So what are some tips for the parents or the grandparents taking their child or grandchildren?
Yeah, so that's really important, especially I see this during blood draws or phlebotomy with little kids. When you see your child getting poked, you start to get anxious, you get nervous, you see them crying. So just making sure that you have really good insight into your emotions, because even if you're not expressing them or saying them, the child can pick up subliminally what you're feeling. So checking your own fears about the doctor, because I know many of us, even as adults, try to avoid the doctor, really turning all that negativity into something positive. Why we're doing this, what we're getting out of it, how it's going to help us be strong and healthy is important.
If the kids or grandkids were taking notes, the ice cream, I think, is the thing that popped out the most. That would get me excited.
So for my nephew, he got a Nintendo Switch game out of it.
Upgrade the games. Forget about ice cream. Let's go Nintendo.
Dr. Kohli, don't tell that to my kids. My goodness, thank you so much, Dr. Kohli.
Thank you.